You keep saying you're healing. You post about it. You talk about it. You even believe it sometimes. You light a candle, read the right books, listen to calm voices telling you to breathe. You say you're letting go. You're becoming more patient, more peaceful, more aligned. But let me ask you something. Why does it still feel heavy when you're alone? Why do you still feel like you're pretending to be okay? The truth, you're not healing. You're hiding. You're managing the pain, not facing it. You're packaging your suffering in pretty quotes, clean routines, and spiritual talk that makes it sound like you're growing. But deep down, you're just covering the wound, not cleaning it, not closing it, just covering it. You smile, but your body is tense. You say, I'm fine, but you flinch when certain names come up. You act strong, but your strength is built on silence, not on truth. You call it healing, but it's something else. It's avoidance. It's denial. It's performance. And worst of all, it's a lie, not to others, to yourself. Carl Jung once said people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And here you are doing everything except facing what's actually there. You've created a version of yourself that looks whole but isn't. A self that talks about growth but can't sit still in silence without feeling like the walls are closing in. You are not broken, but you are lying. You're lying every time you say you've moved on when you still replay the past every night. You're lying every time you forgive someone out loud but keep bleeding inside. You're lying when you say you're free but still choose comfort over truth. You're lying when you say you're over them when they still show up in your dreams. And here's the brutal part, you don't even know you're lying. You've gotten so good at protecting yourself from pain that you can't tell the difference between healing and hiding. You call it strength, but it's fear. You call it calm, but it's emotional numbness. You call it acceptance, but it's quiet resentment disguised as peace. But no lie lasts forever. Eventually the truth starts to rise. Through your body, through your silence, through your exhaustion. It's that tight feeling in your chest when you're around someone who doesn't see the real you. It's the stomach ache when you say yes but mean no. It's the tiredness that sleep can't fix, because it's not your body that's tired. It's your soul from all the pretending. So let's drop the mask. Healing isn't about pretending you're over it. It's about saying, I'm not, but I'm ready to face it now. You don't need another book. You don't need another affirmation. You don't need to raise your vibration. You need to stop lying. You need to look in the mirror and admit what hurts. You need to stop saying, I'm okay when you're not. You need to admit that you've settled in love, in life, in how you treat yourself. You're not lost. You're just buried under layers of your own denial. And until you start telling the truth, no amount of healing will ever work. Because healing begins the moment you stop running from yourself. This isn't about blaming you. This is about waking you up. Stop lying to yourself in the name of self-care. Face what you've been avoiding. Feel what you've been numbing. Say what you've been afraid to say. Even if your voice shakes. Even if no one claps. Even if nothing changes right away. Because that is where real healing begins. With truth. Some lies don't shout. They whisper. They wear soft voices and kind words. They pretend to protect you. They tell you it's okay. You've been through enough. Or you don't need to do more. Or you're healing, just rest. But behind those soft words, something darker hides. Comfort, avoidance, stagnation. And the worst part? You believe these lies because they sound like love. You tell yourself, I'm doing my best. But are you? You say, I'm taking space for myself. But is that space helping you grow? Or just letting you hide? You say, I've accepted it. But is it acceptance or resignation? Carl Jung warned that what we don't face within becomes our fate. And that's what happens when you believe these quiet lies. You start to live in a false peace. You feel calm, but it's the calm of someone who's given up, not someone who's truly free. Let's look closer at these lies. First, I'm fine the way I am. You are worthy. Yes, but let's not confuse worth with growth. Telling yourself you don't need to change is just another way to stay safe. Another way to avoid admitting there are parts of you that need to grow, stretch, mature. Parts that are still scared, still bitter, still passive, still waiting for someone else to fix it. You are not your trauma, but you are still responsible for what you do with it. Second, it's not my fault. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe they hurt you. Maybe life was unfair, but how long will you live in that story? Yes, you were wounded, but what about now? Who's keeping the wound open? Who's replaying the story? Who's still giving that pain permission to define who you are? Responsibility isn't about blame, it's about power. The moment you say, "This is my life now," is the moment you get to change it. But if you keep saying, "It's not my fault," you'll stay stuck, angry, waiting, powerless. Third, I'm just protecting my peace. This one sounds wise, mature, healthy, but sometimes it's a wall, not a boundary. You avoid hard conversations. You walk away from discomfort. You say no to anything that shakes your image of calm. But here's the thing, peace that comes from avoidance isn't peace, it's fear in disguise. Real peace comes from facing the storm, not hiding from it. Don't build your life around comfort and call it healing. That's not healing, that's emotional sedation. Fourth, I'm not ready. Another soft lie, one of the deadliest. You say it about starting that project, ending that relationship, telling the truth, changing your habits, being who you know you're meant to be. You keep waiting for the perfect time, but what if that time never comes? You don't need more time. You need more truth. Truth that says, yes, it's scary, but staying stuck is scarier. You keep saying one day, but days pass, years pass, and still, you wait. But life won't wait forever. At some point, you have to look in the mirror and ask, if not now, when? The truth is, these lies are not just words, they're prisons. They keep you locked in cycles that feel safe but steal your fire. They let you avoid the pain, but they also keep you from the life that pain could have taught you to build. You can't grow inside a story that isn't real. You can't heal inside a cage of comforting lies. And you can't be free until you're honest enough to burn the script you've been living in. So here's a question to sit with. What truth have you been avoiding because the lie feels easier? Think carefully. The answer is already inside you. You've just been too afraid to say it out loud. But this next part, this is where things change. This is where we stop just naming the lies and start doing something about them. You say you want truth, but do you? Because truth isn't soft. It doesn't hug you first. It doesn't wait until you feel ready. Truth doesn't arrive with flowers. It shows up like a storm. It breaks things. It flips the table you've been quietly eating at for years. Truth is not a friend at first. It's a mirror you've spent your whole life avoiding. Because once you see what's in that mirror, you can't unsee it. And the moment you tell the truth to yourself, you lose the right to keep pretending. That's why so many people choose lies. Not because they're evil, but because they're scared. Scared of who they've become. Scared of the choices they'll have to make. Scared of the silence that comes after the excuses are gone. But let's be real. A peaceful life built on lies is just a slow death with nice furniture. Carl Jung said, "We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." And that's the hard part. You can't change what you won't own. You can't grow if you won't admit where you're shrinking. You can't be whole if you're still performing for love. So what does it look like to stop lying? It looks like this. You admit the relationship is dead even if they still smile at you. You admit you don't like your job even if it pays the bills. You admit you've been lazy even if you've convinced others you're just resting. You admit you've been blaming your past because you're too scared to take control of your future. Stopping the lie means taking off the costume, the one that makes people like you, need you, praise you. It means risking discomfort, loneliness, and disapproval to finally feel real. Because pretending is killing you slowly. You laugh at things you don't find funny. You agree with things that don't feel right. You keep connections that drain you. You say you're okay when you're not. And the lie becomes a habit, a lifestyle, a mask that never comes off. Until one day you forget what your real face looks like. That's the price of the lie. And here's the thing no one wants to say. Truth costs you your comfort, but lies cost you your soul. You can't be free and fake at the same time. You can't heal while hiding. You can't transform while tiptoeing around your own reflection. So let me ask you right here, right now. What are you still pretending doesn't hurt? Who are you still pretending to love? What are you still pretending is just fine when it's killing you? Truth doesn't ask you to fix everything today. It just asks you to stop lying about what needs to change. Because that's the real start, not healing, honesty. Radical, quiet, uncomfortable honesty, the kind that shows up in the middle of the night and says you can't live like this anymore, and you know it's right. This moment, this crack in your pretending, this is where transformation begins. Not with a plan, not with a guru, not with a perfect morning routine. It starts here, with truth in your chest, and no more room for lies. The next part is not easy, but it is everything. Because now that the lie has been exposed, you have a choice, to keep wearing it, or to finally walk into the fire of who you really are. So now you know. You've peeled back the mask. You've named the lies. You've stood in front of the mirror and didn't look away. That alone makes you different from most. Because most people stop there. They touch the truth, but they don't carry it. They admit what's broken, but they don't rebuild. They speak the pain, but then run back to comfort. But not you. You stayed. And now something inside you is shifting. Something is breaking, not apart, but open. This is the part no one talks about. The quiet after the storm. The strange stillness once the lies fall. No more excuses. No more roles. No more noise. Just you. Bare, awake, unprotected. And here's the question that rises in that silence. What now? What do you do when you're no longer lying? What do you do when there's no story left to hide behind? No persona to wear? No one else to blame? You take responsibility. Not the heavy kind that shames you. The real kind. The kind that sets you free. Responsibility means this. You stop waiting. You stop blaming. You stop hoping someone else will come fix it. You get honest, and then you get to work. Because truth without action is just another performance, another illusion, another cage. You've said I'm not okay. Now what? You start building what is. You start showing up even when you don't feel ready. You start speaking what's real, even when your voice trembles. You start doing the hard things, not to prove anything, but because you finally care enough about your life to live it fully. Carl Jung called this the path of individuation, not perfection, not happiness, but wholeness, being all of who you are, shadow and light, wound and strength, past and possibility. Because real power doesn't come from pretending you're healed. It comes from knowing where you still hurt and choosing to live anyway. This is where your life begins, not the one you show others, the one you've always felt beneath the noise, the quiet you that wanted more, the hidden self that got silenced by survival, the child in you who once believed in truth before the world taught you how to lie. You found them again, and now they're looking at you, not asking for healing, not asking for another plan, just asking you to be honest and to stay that way. Because once you stop lying, you start becoming. You become the kind of person who walks into hard conversations instead of avoiding them, who feels the pain but doesn't collapse, who owns their patterns and rewrites them, who loses people, yes, but finally stops losing themselves. You don't need to heal before you start. You just need to start living as someone who tells the truth, especially to yourself. That's the beginning of everything. And no, it won't always be easy. But ease was never the goal. Freedom was. So here you are. A little raw, a little unsure, but real. And that's more than most people ever become. You don't need fixing. You don't need saving. You don't need another mask, another delay, another soothing lie. You need one thing only, to never lie to yourself again. Because the truth is hard, but it's yours. And nothing is more powerful than someone who finally stops running and stands tall inside the fire. So now I'll ask you one last time, what truth have you been running from? Write it, say it, breathe it, because that's the moment the lie dies and you are finally born.